So, is there a way to do this Streamlab thing? Let's see. I'm going to pause you for a minute. Okay, so my husband's going to come down and help me figure out how to record the screen. But the 2020 reading stats, we'll start with that. Number of books I read, 120. 91 physical books, 29 audio. And from the Goodreads stuff, it says I read 37,272 pages. Number of rereads was 12. And genre you read the most from. So for that, I just kind of quickly looked and counted some of them, but I didn't count all 120. I didn't put them all into a genre necessarily. But it's kind of funny because I say that mystery slash detective I had as like a genre. And then thriller suspense, I would say that grouping is like my favorite genre. And then I have romance, middle grade, sci-fi and fantasy, horror and classics and nonfiction. And I'd say like I never read horror, but in 2020 I dived just a little bit, just dipped my toe into the horror genre and discovered that it's not as scary as watching like horror movies. It's different. It's more disturbing. I'm more disturbed by it than scared by it, I guess. So nonfiction, I read 19 nonfictions. Mystery detective, 11. Thriller suspense, 5. Romance, 8. Middle grade, 17. Horror, 5. Classics, 10. And science fiction and fantasy, 29 of my reads were science fiction and fantasy. So that includes like a lot of stuff, right? For me anyways. So it was kind of funny to discover that maybe what I really like in books is a little bit different than I thought. Like it says best in books, best book you read in 2020. I have no idea. My husband is here to help me now.
You want to capture a video?
Okay, I have like 10 minutes of space on my phone to record because my card has like no space on it. Anyways, my husband came down and I think maybe this will work. If screen capture doesn't work, then you just gotta look at this. Okay, so where are we? Here. So best in books. Best book you read in 2020. If you have to cheat, you can break it down by genre if you want. Like 2020 versus backlist. So I'm just going to go to my Goodreads here. I'm going to go to, I haven't been using it in 2021. I am using the Storygraph instead. And instead of just going back and forth between Goodreads and the Storygraph and stuff, I've just been using the Storygraph. So check that out for sure. Add me as a friend if you would like. Where do I go? My books? Let's see, I don't know what I'm doing with Goodreads. Year in books, reading stats? Maybe it was reading stats. Okay, so this is where it shows me that I have the 37,000 pages and 120 books. My shortest book was Fracture Me, so that is a series that I discovered in 2020. I read all of them between February and May. Never heard of them before, never heard of the author, anything like that. And then the last book released in May, right as I was coming up at finishing it. So there's, I believe, 5 books and 5 like novellas, so that's why it was only 72 pages. And then my longest book, which I ended up listening to, was The Death of Mrs. Westaway at 590 pages. Average book was 314 pages. Most popular, The Hunger Games, with like 8 million. And the least popular is Misguided Honor with only 8 people, which makes sense because it is a local author and Canadian author as well. And my average rating was 4. It says 4. The star shows a little bit more there, but it says 4. So I think I'm like really generous with my ratings, honestly. I haven't even been like rating books yet this year. I've only read a couple, but highest rated on Goodreads, Becoming. My first review of the year, Dr. Dolittle, and we just rewatched the Robert Downey Jr. version with my husband and kids because I wanted them to see. And Dr. Dolittle is so cute, and I told my husband if he finds like a series set of it, buy it for me because it's adorable and I want to read more of them. So here is a look at my books for 2020. That's what I read. So again, I read a lot of books that I'd never heard of, books I would have never picked up because of BookTube. So that's good. I wouldn't say that's bad. I think that's a good thing, but I need to focus more on my not neglecting my walk, my faith walk and journey with that as well, because that's more important. So my last review of the year, I was really bad at reviewing things. So, and congratulations, I got 120 out of 60 books. So, my best book of the year. So I think there was a spot that would show me my 5-star reads. So view books from 2020. Yeah, so this is where it's showing me like my 5-star books, but it's really tiny and hard to see. And like I said, I think I just gave a lot of high reviews on this. So I only have 9 minutes left, so I gotta hurry up. Best book. So this Overwhelmed one was really good if you're dealing with being overwhelmed, obviously. How to Quiet the Chaos and Restore Your Sanity. Kathy Lipp, very funny author and comedian. The Gracier, I actually really enjoyed it when I read it, when we did the live show, or when I watched the live show for it. Everyone talked about what was wrong with it, and I was like, damn, you're right. But I liked it as I was reading it. A lot of people liked One to Watch, and I obviously liked it because I gave it 5 stars, but I think it really, some people said it is not good fat representation, and I can't really talk to that. I liked Bea, and I liked her as a character, but they talked about the representation of the male characters in the show. If you don't know, it's basically this girl that ends up being on The Bachelorette kind of show called One to Watch, or The Main Squeeze, and she's the first plus-size woman to be the main squeeze, and she wanted more diversity in the male bachelors coming onto the show to win her affections, and the representation there was not great. And again, I can't speak to that, but I'm gonna trust the Own Voices reviewers and stuff like that, and other people who just said it wasn't great. But I really enjoyed it because of the emotions it evoked in me with how people treated her, because they were on the internet, and there were people, like even some of the guys that came on the show, that treated her really nasty, and not necessarily directly to her face, but directly behind her back. And the emotions it evoked in me is why I gave it such a high rating, and I do want to do a more in-depth review of it. Summer Sisters is just one of my favorite books by Judy Blume, and this is a reread for me, like 3rd or 4th time reading it. The House in the Cerulean Sea was a huge surprise to me, and not something I, again, would have ever picked up. It reads more like a middle grade, but it is an adult book, and it does deal with adult things, but it was really cute, really fun, really fantastical, and just, I really, really loved it. So that would be on my top favorite books of the year. Wolf by Wolf was surprising. I read it because I was trying to read books that reminded me of the MCU, and it came from a list. And Wolf by Wolf was talked about because of Captain America, and it takes place just after the Second World War, and it is what if Hitler won the war, and there's this motorcycle race, and this girl has a chance to get close to Hitler and possibly kill him. So apparently there is another book after this. You can see on here it says number 1, so apparently there's a second book, and I definitely want to get into that. That was a surprising one that I really enjoyed. And that is one that could be under historical fiction and also under like the sci-fi fantasy kind of genre. And Eliza and Her Monsters is one I read, I think because of the Hulk or something like that. And I liked it, but it was definitely not something like I super connected with, because I am not like a fanfic person. I'm not somebody who just does fanfic stuff. I don't know. But it was still fun, and I probably, maybe on rethinking of it, it might not be a full 5 stars for me, but I still enjoyed it when I read it. For a nonfiction, this woman book here, Redefining Realness, My Path to Womanhood, Identity, Love, and So Much More by Janet Mock, was a book I read for the Black Owenathon for a trans character and a person of color. And again, I picked this up because of BookTube, because of Readathon, and I really, really, really enjoyed this. This one was definitely outside of my comfort zone, and it was really interesting to hear from a perspective from somebody who is so far removed from what I am, from the lifestyle I live, and even where I live, they live in, like, part of their life was in Hawaii, I think part was like in Texas, just in the States. They are a person of color. They are transgender. They lived and worked as a sex worker for a while. All this stuff. And I'm not a person of color. I am not transgender. I don't live in the States. Never been a sex worker. Their life experience and everything is just so far different from what mine is, and it was really, really interesting. And she tells her story as well as telling like stats about trans women of color, trans women who do sex work, trans women going for gender surgeries, all that stuff. So she adds statistics, but it's not like bogged down and you're just like, it's like a textbook kind of thing. It's really interesting because it's just like sprinkled in throughout her real life true story. And that's one of my favorite probably non-fiction of the year. Little Men was the sequel to Little Women, and I liked that a lot more than Jo's Boys. And I listened to Little Women at the end of 2019 and then watched the latest movie on New Year's Eve. And then I didn't realize that there was 2 more books after that, Little Men and Jo's Boys. So I listened to both of those because they were available at my library for on Hoopla, I think. And I really liked Little Men. It was really fun, and it follows Jo March and her being married and having the house for the school for boys. And it was really fun, but Jo's Boys after that just felt like the longest epilogue ever. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't really necessary either. Yeah, those are some of the best books I read. And then there's some 4 stars. Radio Silence was for 3 Blondes in a Book, I believe, as well as The Gracier, The Girl Who Drank the Moon. A lot of these books are from that. Some of these are from, this is from Currently Reading with Allie Dunn. I read because of her book club. Some of them I read because of my MCU reading challenge kind of thing, and some I just read because they looked interesting. The Silent Patient, me and my friend listened to that on audio. The Hunger Games I reread because I wanted to read the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I really liked The Hunger Games. Scythe, loved it. Reading, I read and gave 5 stars to Thunderhead at the end of the year. Anyways, this is gonna finish on me now, so I will finish this. So I'm back. I ran out of memory card space, I guess. So, back, got myself a snack, got myself some sparkling raspberry lime. I'm not a huge fan of sparkling water, but I drink a lot of pop, so trying to drink and replace pop with something a little bit more healthy. And my one daughter absolutely loves it. My other daughter and son, it's okay for them, but my one daughter will sit and drink like 3 bubblies in a row, just like pound them back. Anyways, what I want to do, okay, my husband did this for me last time. Let's see what we're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. So I took a little bit of time to talk about like my favorite books of the year and stuff. So I'm hoping to do these a little bit faster this time. Okay, my husband came and rescued us again. Thank you. Oh, excuse me. Thank you, husband.
You're welcome, wife.
Okay, so hopefully this is working. I got my cheese and crackers here to munch on, my bubbly. It's not bubbly, that's a name brand. But my sparkling water, Pure Life. Best book you read in 2020. We talked about, I went through some of the books that I have read, some of my 5 stars and stuff like that. Apparently, I've lost my way. Oh, of course, because I'm trying to record and do a video, so it's gonna be like, nothing's gonna work. Anyways. Number 2, book you were excited about and thought you were going to love, but didn't. A book I didn't know if I was gonna love it or not. I kind of thought like, this could go either way, but a book I was excited about was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and that was definitely a disappointing book after rereading The Hunger Games and watching a bunch of reviews of people either rereading it or reading it for the first time and then going in and reading the ballad. Everyone talks about like how amazing and how good the Hunger Games trilogy is, and there might be better written, like everyone might have a favorite out of the trilogy or say like the first one's better or whatever, but overall the story is really good, and all that Suzanne Collins did with that was really just top tier, 5-star kind of thing. And I also rewatched the movies with my husband, and I thought they were good and they did a good job on them. And then reading the Songbirds ballad, Songbird Snakes, they it just didn't hit the mark the same way, and it wasn't necessarily bad. It was kind of long and drawn out. I didn't necessarily think I was gonna love it, but it wasn't as good as it could have or should have been, considering the original trilogy was so good. Number 3, most surprising in a good or bad way book you read. I really enjoyed TJ Klune's The House in the Cerulean Sea, which topped a lot of people's top 10 lists of the year, but I'd never read from him before. I wasn't sure like with the genre how it was gonna go. I wasn't sure, knowing that one of the characters was going to be a young Lucifer. I was like, because I'm a Christian, so I was like, oh no, how's he gonna handle this? Is it just gonna be like totally anti-Christ, against God, against Christianity? Or like, how's that gonna be handled? Like, if it's bad, I'm gonna stop reading it. But I think it was handled fine, and I didn't feel there was a big message against Christianity. He was just a Lucifer as a kid, and it didn't really go beyond that. They talked about him being like a bad kid and stuff like that, or if he could control those urges or whatever, but it wasn't like anti-God from what I could pick up or understand from it. Maybe it was, and I just didn't get it. But yeah, most surprising in a good way, I would say, is The House in the Cerulean Sea. A lot of people think it's middle grade the way it is written, so I just enjoyed it because it was an easy read but dealt with like heavy topics, and it was just really fun. And I loved the island. I loved Arthur and the sprite living on the island and all the kids, and Lioness, who is like the social worker to go check up on them. It was just really fun and cute, and I really, really enjoyed it. Book you pushed the most people to read, and they did. I don't know if I really pushed a lot of people to read or not. I felt like I was more reading books that were pushed on me than I was pushing books to read. But one of my favorites is Summer Sisters, which I reread. I haven't reread it yet, but Jurassic Park was like a surprising read for me a couple of years ago. So I pushed people to read that one, I guess. But I don't think anyone reads what I suggest. Best series you started in 2020, best sequel, best series ender. So in 2020, like I said, I read all of the Shatter Me books. So I read all of them, start to finish, and I really enjoyed that one. I don't know if it's the best series starter or middle or ender. I read Scythe, the first one, and then best sequel. So I really, really, really enjoyed Thunderhead. After Scythe, I enjoyed Scythe enough to go on with Thunderhead. So there's that one. Definitely Thunderhead. I enjoyed Shatter Me enough to read all of them. So there's that one. Hunger Games is probably one of the better first books in a series. I also read the Green series, which is the Circle series. So there's green. I know there's green, red, white, and black, I believe. That one's a good ender because it's a circle, so you can read the series like it goes in a circle. And so the very, very ending of that one, you're just like, you're like, what happens? There isn't like a total conclusion to that one. I'd say Hunger Games is the best series starter. Thunderhead is like the middle book, and then maybe Circle for the ending, for the last book in a series. And also the Shatter Me ones. I like that. If you are a Christian and you want to read more Christian fantasy sci-fi books, definitely Ted Dekker. I prefer Ted Dekker's other like thriller mystery books, suspense books, more than his fantasy. But I read these, and now he has another series that comes after this one called The Rise of the Mystics that I have to read now. I bought both of those from, I think, Book Depository had them. And then I also have his daughter's books to read this year. So I think Ted Dekker is better at the suspense. Number 3, Ted Dekker 3 is definitely one I would push you to read. If you're looking for a Christian science fiction, then this one is definitely interesting, and it deals with a plague, basically, a virus going around and that kills people. So it was definitely timely to be reading it. Favorite new author you discovered in 2020? I think 2020 is the first time I read from Karen Slaughter. Scythe, Neil Shusterman was a good one. I definitely want to read more by, this is gonna pop up, by Tahira Mafi. I would definitely want to read more from her. That was really good. Slay was a good book. I enjoyed it. It wasn't my typical kind of read. I would be interested to read more from Brittany Morris for sure. And I'm debating if I want to read more Stephen Graham Jones, as his books are very disturbing and they are horror, but yeah, very, very disturbing. So it was really good though. It was a good story, well written. I liked it, but I don't know. I'm scared to read more from him. Best book from a genre you don't typically read or was out of your comfort zone. This book here, if it'll show it, Pan's Labyrinth, is another horror. Also very disturbing scenes and stuff in it. Really good though. Really, really enjoyed it. Grip was Kennedy Ryan, very more explicit than I would normally like. But the book and the messages in it, the story and the messages in it were really good. So I liked that one. But I don't read a lot of romance, and I don't read like the rated R romance stuff typically. What was my question? Favorite new author you discovered? So I think, no. Best book from a genre you don't typically read or was out of your comfort zone. For nonfiction, this Redefining Realness was really good too. I read a lot of nonfiction, but it's usually Christian. Or something like Becoming, like someone's memoir or something. Pan's Labyrinth and The Only Good Indians. Really good for horror genre that I don't normally read at all. Most action-packed, thrilling, unput-downable book of the year. Turn of the Key. And Wolf by Wolf was really good too. A lot of action in that one. She's racing across the desert. I don't race. I don't ride a motorcycle. I don't go in the desert. Nothing like that. And I was in it for the ride. For sure. Pun intended. Book you read in 2020 that you would most likely to be a reread. Book you read in 2020 that you would be most likely to reread in next year. One to Watch and Slay are two books I want to reread and do a more like in-depth like vlog / review and just give my thoughts like as a vlog style, like just giving my thoughts as I read the story. So those are the two that I want to reread. Yeah, that's all I can think of. Oh, this 2020 is also the first time I ever read a Riley Sager. But I like that genre, like thrillers, but I definitely want to reread. I want to read more Riley Sager. Not reread The Last Time I Lied, but read more from him as well. And The Deep is a short enough one too that it would be good to dive back into that one as well. But yeah, Slay and One to Watch. Favorite book cover of the book cover you read? Oh, that's a hard one. I really enjoyed A Boy Called Christmas and The Girl Who Saved Christmas. Really cute covers and cute illustrations. The Train to Impossible Places, beautiful, beautiful cover. Oh, The House with the Chicken Legs, the cover I read from the library was not this cute. This one is really pretty. My Night Circus cover was also different from this one, but I do like the black and white with the little hints of red. Oh, this one that I'm obsessed with, I Love You So Mochi. The very front cover, like with the couple on it, might not be the most aesthetically pleasing, but the whole book, like the whole cover, the book sleeve, the inside cover, all the drawings, I just obsessed over it. And that was one of my favorites. And Slay, I love the hot pink, and that one is one of my favorites too. And I also like the Grace here, the pretty, more of a babyish, lighter pink. Yeah, those are a few of my favorite book covers. Most memorable character of 2020? I don't know. Juliet from the Shatter Me series is definitely memorable. I'm trying to think of ones that I was like, that I think back to. Michelle Obama, she's definitely not really a character, but an unforgettable person. Wolf by Wolf is another good one. See, but I can't remember their names, so does that make them unforgettable? Yale, Y-A-E-L. Oh, Howl from Howl's Moving Castle, always an unforgettable character. The Mermaids in the Deep, and her name was Yetu. Definitely unforgettable there. Does that answer the question? Oh, and the Green Glass Castle is also a very beautiful cover. And the guys from Scythe. Scythe Faraday, Scythe Curie, Citra and Rowan, and Elk Woman from The Only Good Indians, definitely unforgettable. Iron Man, unforgettable. Most beautifully written book in 2020? Probably The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. When I think beautiful writing, that's what I think of. Also, another favorite cover, Who Doesn't Love the Fox? Very cute. Most thought-provoking or life-changing book of 2020, The Skin We're In. So these were part of the read-a-thon that I did. But I liked The Skin We're In, but I really liked Why Young Men? The Dangerous Allure of Violent Movements and What We Can Do About It by Jamal Giovanni. Really like that one. Highly recommend that one. It is Canadian, but he also travels around the world a little bit. Really good. Really liked that one. We Have Always Been Here, a queer Muslim memoir. Really interesting because they did immigrate into Canada, and just being queer and a Muslim. It's interesting. Again, I'm a Christian, and religion is not seen as the most welcoming of the queer community, or like we can love you from a distance kind of thing, but how can you call yourself a Christian and part of the LGBTQ plus community? How can you call yourself a Muslim and be queer, right? Like I'm not in the Muslim community, so I don't know what they say, but I know that like with the Christian community, it's like, how can you be gay and be a Christian? That's a video for another time. I'm not going to unpack that now, but it was really interesting to see the perspective of a queer person living a very devout religious lifestyle. For a fiction book, Other Words for Home is the story of Jude. She's 12 years old and she has to immigrate from Syria to the States with her pregnant mom, leaving her dad and her brother behind in Syria. And that one was really interesting, very beautifully written, very lyrical. It was told in verse. It was really interesting just because you're seeing racism and stuff, and from the perspective of the 12-year-old and being a kid who has to be the interpreter for their mom in a new country. So that one was really thought-provoking for parenting and being an adult. Overwhelmed, How to Quiet the Chaos and Restore Your Sanity. Another one I need to reread. Bonding with Your Child Through Boundaries. When Did I Get Like This? The Screamer, The Worrier, The Dinosaur Chicken Nugget Buyer, and Other Mothers I Swore I'd Never Be was also a really good one and thought-provoking. And then also very, very, very thought-provoking, Redefining Realness by Janet Mock, which I mentioned earlier. It's a book by this woman who is transgender and a person of color. So that one was really, really good and had a lot of thought-provoking things in it as well. Books you can't believe you waited until 2020 to finally read. I don't think there's any on there, really, because most of them I was just discovering for the first time in 2020 anyways. Nothing that I can't believe I waited to read. Favorite passage quote from a book you read in 2020? That is something I'd have to look up. I don't even know. And shortest and longest book you read in 2020, so that is mentioned on the side here. The Death of Mrs. Westaway coming in at 590 pages, and Fracture Me coming in at 72 pages. So yeah, that's my year in review. It took me a long time to get to it. I don't know what my thoughts are on any of this stuff. I don't know how to wrap it all up. It was a really good reading year, but like I said, I read so much that a lot of it got lost. So this year is going to be dedicated to more quality than quantity, and yeah, just starting on that. I'm already fighting that, like, gotta finish this book so I can get to the next book, gotta get to the next book. Just slow down and enjoy the ride. And it's okay if I don't read all the romance in February. I still have, 10 more months to read romance. And I'm not a big romance reader. That's why I want to read it in February. But it's like, no, just calm down. It's okay. You can read a romance in November if you want. Yeah, and just enjoying the journey of reading. So that's my wrap up. Thank you for watching. Comment down below. Have a discussion with me. Let me know what your favorite books were, what your most disappointing books were, your most beautiful books. Did you read anything outside of your comfort zone? What is your comfort zone? And I'll talk to you next time. I'll see you later. Bye.